Hello YouTubers, this is the Gold Standard 00924 coming at you with another video. I'm going to be doing an anime review on Sword Art Online. I guess you could say it's kind of a mix between a review and a rant. And I'll explain as the video progresses, but there's some things I really want to get out of my chest, and there are some things that kind of really tick me off as far as this anime is concerned. There are certain stories where it just really lacks that substance, where you just really can't relate to the characters and what the pain they go through. But I'll be doing a review on some of the flaws as the video progresses. And for this review, as well as a little bit of a rant on Sword Art Online, basically it was an anime that came out just about last year. Basically, in the story, there's a group of ordinary online game players. They use the nerve gear to help to play a online simulation, somewhat kind of like a virtual reality sort of game. Basically, they go into this video game realm and they realize that they can't log out, and then you have the protagonist, Kirito. He's one of the beta testers in the game, as well as, like I said, the protagonist. And he, and along with another supporting character named Klein, they both meet up, and they were gonna log out, but then they realized that they couldn't, and then they both get transferred over to a stadium with a bunch of other online players that were trying out the game. And then Heathcliff, or the creator of, or Akihiko Kayeba, who was the creator of Sword Art Online, there's an assembly that goes on, and he kind of explains what happens, with like why they can't log out and stuff. And he goes on to mention that if they want to get out of the game, they have to beat the whole game by completing the 100th floor in the video game, and they have to beat the boss during that 100th floor. So so that's basically probably the only way to to not only beat the game, but to get the online players out of the video game realm and back into their reality world. And even though he does say that you could remove your nerve gear or whatsoever, but if anyone attempted to do that, then that not only will they die in the video game realm, but they will also die in real life. So if someone even got killed in the video game, then they will also die too in reality. So that's really how the premise goes. Now, this series overall, it just, it started off pretty strong, but then, it just really feels very underwhelming. For a TV series called Sword Art Online, basically it only lasted a short amount of time. And even though there was like only 25 episodes of the series, there's a second arc that fills up pretty much half the first season, like around, I want to say episode 15 or 16ish, and it goes on for like 10, 11 episodes and such. And it's an entirely different story arc that doesn't really correlate to the first story arc. And I'll explain a little later, but for a show that's kind of called that anime name, it's really very underwhelming, like I said. There aren't really any legit characters besides Kirito. He does meet up with a female player by the name of Asuna, and that was in the second episode where she and Kirito team up. When we first see Asuna, she was kind of like dressed in this Red Riding Hood gear. But then, she unveils herself later in the second episode, and, she starts off like this strong female player, kicking ass, taking names, and all this such. Um, and Kirito, I mean, they kind of portrayed him as kind of like a loner because like I think about like every team, every time he joins a team, most of them just die afterwards. They get killed off like one episode, and then they basically moves on from there. Um, I mean, aside from like Kirito and Asuna, I mean, there weren't really any legit ongoing characters because normally when you have like a TV show or some certain anime, you're bound to have like a set supporting character. Like they'll appear like every episode, and we start to get to know them. But out of all the TV shows I've seen, for this anime, I mean, you can't really recall too many characters in the game or in the anime itself. There are some like, for instance, like there will be like one episode where a character will appear, like like Kirito will always be hooking up with this certain character, and then either after the character of the episode dies, or they just don't get seen on the anime ever again. Um, I mean, there was really a lot of filler arcs. I mean, like for an anime that that has a very such a low episode count. Um, you have Kirito meeting up with a bunch of really forgettable characters. And it's kind of really hard to even remember them because, like I said, they don't really kind of branch out. So I think that's kind of lacking is just basically the character development side because there's a lot of plot device characters and most of them aren't really that memorable. Um, let's see what I want to find out. And so I think the filler episodes really hurt the series a bit, and I would say it hurts a lot, but it's just I don't know. I mean, it was just kind of frustrating at first, but I'm not gonna ramble too much on that, but just basically, it's just I don't really think the filler arcs were really needed, or at least they should have done it so much. Um, Damn, I can't really remember too much. But Kirito and Asuna they kind of hook up as the series progresses, and even after the second episode, Asuna even she doesn't really appear a whole lot as well. I mean, they don't. She and Kirito don't really hook up until like the seventh, eighth episode, and that's where she started becoming official partners. And by that time, Sword Art Online was on like it was like towards the end of that story arc. I mean, she wasn't teaming up with him for that very long. I mean, there were like after the second episode, she kind of fades away, and then she comes back for a little bit, like in the seventh episode. Um, I think it was the episode where Kirito meets up with a blacksmith who turns out to be a female. I forgot what her name was, but she helps him kind of create a new sword for that's a lot stronger than his original sword. Um, but she kind of creates just kind of makes the sword like a new sword that's like really just better than his original sword, if you want to put it that way. I mean, I know I could explain it better, but I think that was basically that episode. And then it was kind of revealed that they were friends. Um, but she was only there for like a little bit, but she doesn't really play a significant role. Um, Not to my knowledge, that is. And then and I can't really stand just as far as like characters go. I'd already discussed how like the lack of character development kind of really hurt the series. You have like Kirito, who started off as like this level 70 guild player, and he's just slicing and dicing all these monsters. And they kind of really portrayed him as like a Gary Stu. For those people that don't know what it is, like a Gary Stu, it's kind of like someone who's hardly has any flaws, or he's always overcoming the odds without going through so many emotions, or somehow he's like stronger than everyone else. like from the start and not really kind of growing as a fighter, because like in like their first couple episodes, I mean, he was already strong like it is. So they make it seem like it was like some kind of sequel to some other show that wasn't even created. But if that makes any sense. But I mean, we didn't really know much about Kirito. I mean, he does. He's all we know is that he's like a great video game player and he's a loner. Um, I mean, he was always like hooking. A bunch of characters that he meets up with are consist of like a bunch of hot female characters in the show that that just sort of come and go. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think that when they bring Asuna, I mean, that was kind of really where they were kind of giving him some sort of character development. Just working not only just himself, but with someone else, or just well with a group of people. But despite the fact that he and Asuna eventually get married online, um, I mean, there wasn't really much that Kirito is like as far as backstory, and I think they explained a little bit in the second story arc, which was called like Alpha Online, but by that time, I mean, it was already too late. Um, but Asuna, I mean, I will give them this. It was great to see someone just really kick ass. Someone that's yeah, she does show a little feminine side here and there. But during battles, she could stand her ground, and there was like there were some scenes where when she first showed up, she was like just really slicing and dicing with her sword, and just basically someone that's just, even though that she might be show a feminine side at times, she could cry, or she's a great cooker, but at the same time she could go out there, turn it on, and you know kick the devil by the horns, if you want to put it that. But you didn't really see her a whole lot in the anime. I mean, yeah, she is another co-leading character. But they really downplayed her character going into the second story arc of the series. And by that time, she was downplayed. She went from Xena Warrior Princess to Princess Peach. The damsel in distress, getting held hostage, and just screaming for help. I mean, they really, like I said, they really downplayed her character, and I just never really understood why. I mean, yeah, characters change, and over time, but that was just very inconsistent with what they did. Um, and you didn't really, even then, you didn't even see her a whole lot. But I don't know. I mean, when she first showed up, she started off really promising. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of popular female leads, because when they either are just Fox action girls, which are basically girls that, even though they are portrayed to be strong, but it turns out in the anime or a particular TV show that that they just aren't really, that person or the female chick of the character in the shows don't live up to the hype. But with Asuna, when she first showed up, like I said, she was really strong, and she could handle her own if she really wanted to. But I mean, it really kind of let me down with the Asuna character. Um, what else? And basically, I mean, their romance with Kirito and Asuna, I mean, it was good on paper. But it just really felt very shallow, because they only knew each other for such a little short amount of time, and they got married from the get-go. Well, as far as in-game RPG goes, but yeah, we don't really knew much about them. Like, really, it just felt very shallow. There was really much depth. Um, I mean, they could have done like some episodes where they're like working together, or there's just some kind of dissension going on, because they're supposed to be co-leaders of a guild, but they never really kind of like explored on that as much. Um, But they could have done episodes where as far as being co-leaders, there's always going to be two characters just fighting over supreme leadership. But I'm surprised they didn't really do that as much, or at least they don't. They never really do that. They, I mean, I just really think that they shouldn't have done the second arc, which was basically called Alfhelm Online, and it was basically a second story arc. Asuna got kidnapped. Towards the end of the first half of the series of Swords Art Online, Heathcliff, who was kind of like the general of the whole, video game, he turns out to be the creator, and he and Kirito were having this fight, and then basically Asuna sacrificed herself for Kirito, and then Kirito would go on to defeat Heathcliff, like I think around, and as well Kirito got killed too, but he also kills Heathcliff with him, and then basically when Heathcliff was kind of like the boss of the whole game, and with him defeated, everyone from Swords Online, or a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people from Swords Online, they get back to reality, but then they kind of left us with a cliffhanger that carries into the next story arc, which really, really, really just was didn't really have that same drive, or that same, I'm kind of looking for that word, that it was kind of like, it just didn't really have that serious sort of motivation that helps drive the anime. With Swords Online, you have people just having to fight for their lives in the battle to the death. It was basically kind of like, the Hunger Games in a way, or Dot Hack, another anime that emphasized on video gaming that came out before it. Man, I'm kind of losing train of thought here. So they get to like the second story arc, which was called Alfhelm Online, and it was basically, Asuna, and as well as a couple other players that were playing Swords Online, they were still trapped in the video game. They have like Asuna's fiance, who was gonna be his, that they planned marriage, or, they have like arranged marriages in Japan. And he was gonna marry her in real life, and and it kind of goes under Kirito's skin. And then they bring in like Kirito's cousin named Lifa, or Lifa is in the game, but Kirito's, or excuse me, Lifa's real name and is Sugo, who is Kirito's cousin. And Kirito's actually name is Kazuya? No. Kirigaya, excuse me. Kazuto Kirigaya. So, they didn't really expose their real names until, like, towards the end of Swords Online. So they go off, they try to save Asuna, and they were, like, doing this story arc where damn, I keep forgetting their names. Sugo and Kazuto, they were actually cousins, and and Sugo had feelings for Kazuto, and they're trying to play it off like they have some romance between them. I mean, it's pretty nasty when you think about it. Well, as far as like outside of Japan goes, I'm not really sure how like Japanese culture goes when it comes to marriage, but it's more like a incest taboo, if you want to put it that. But they were really teasing that whole thing like for most of that story arc, and even though Asuna, their goal was to rescue Asuna from the pedophile guy, they were just, she was just basically a third wheel. I mean, she didn't really appear as whole much, and she was held hostage, and it was just really, really bad. I mean, just the storyline behind it just really, kind of really screams jump the shark, and which is quite a shame. And then they had like Retcon, who was teaming up with Leafa previously, but then he got captured by salamanders, and he didn't really appear for most of that story arc until like the last 3 episodes. And while that was going on, they were doing this whole this whole thing with Leafa and Kirito, and it was just really terrible. But eventually, Kirito, rescues Asuna from Oberon, who's basically the fairy king of Alpha Online. It was a pretty gruesome fight. I mean, it didn't last too long, but Oberon, was just molesting Asuna. She was raping him, or he was raping her. Excuse me. Yeah, but and then basically Kirito managed to get to that tower, or and just basically save Asuna, and basically they got her back out from the video game, and and it kind of fast forwards to a couple years later, and unfortunately for the ending of Sword Art Online, I mean, to not see Asuna and Kirito hooking up again was just bullshit. Yes, they did hook up, like they did meet up with each other like around school time, but then you didn't really see her like at the end scene of the last episode. Excuse me. But overall, Swords Art Online, was just, started off really well, but then it just really started to go downhill very, very quick. Just really wasted potential, in my opinion. There was really not a lot of character depth. There's just sort of supporting characters that, that were just basically plot devices. Most of them just really, really come and go. I mean, they were very forgettable at best. I mean, if it was up to me, I would have just extended the Swords Online, the Sword Art Online story arc rather than doing Alpha Online and just rushing everything and cramming things together in like 10, 11 episodes. I think according to like Hulu, the 25 episodes are considered to be part of season 1. If that's really true, then it was really disappointing that they did not have Swords Art Online last until like the end of the series, like instead of doing the whole Alpha Online bullshit. We could have seen a little more character development from both Asuna and Kirito, and kind of leading up to actually having them hook up, so that way it wouldn't feel so rushed and forced. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of really my honest opinion on Swords Art Online. I guess you could say it's more ranting than a review, but just like I said, it was really wasted potential. I mean, I haven't really seen Dot Hack Sign, because I think they had a similar concept previously. But Sword Art Online, I mean, it was just really underwhelming series. I guess you could say the fight scenes were pretty cool, so I mean, it was really good choreographed, but this series just didn't really have any long-term storylines or stuff like that. And that's why, I mean, this is probably, out of all the animes I've seen, this is probably one of my least favorite. It's not top 10-ish material, but it just really was very disappointing. Let me know what you all think. Till next time, this is the Gold Standard 00924 signing out.